the search for our own reality. Tonight, let's discuss the matters that most interest us and that have brought us here together. Brothers and sisters, truly, the fundamental purpose in life is to achieve reality. In the name of truth, I must say that the humanoid is something yet to be fully realized. If we observe the lower species that inhabit the earth, unicerebral and bicerebral animals, we see that they are born complete. A horse is complete, a cow provides milk and is born complete, but we are born incomplete. Our body forms within the mother's womb, gestates there, and is then born, grows, and develops. The creative energy brings it into existence. In its process of development within the womb, we see how the various organs are formed, yet at birth it is still not complete. Even the fontanelle of a newborn remains open. What people here call the soft spot is not yet closed. If we consider this along with the state of the newborn, we see that it is incomplete. Certainly, and in the name of truth, as recognized by medical professors, the intellectual animal is a rational mammal, as they say. And this is true, it is not complete. The germ that developed within the maternal womb does not become a complete creature simply by being born. Development continues, in its ordinary sense, as a humanoid until the age of 21. Now you can understand why it is indeed dangerous for an adolescent to engage in sexual relations. The adolescent has not completed development, a process that reaches completion only at the age of 21. The creative energy that brought it into existence, that energy that brought about the conception of the fetus within the maternal womb and brought it to life, must further develop it. However, at 21, the adolescent has only fully developed as a humanoid, but this does not mean that their full development has concluded. No, as a humanoid, development has occurred, but not as a human. A human being must be made, must be created. We are humanoids, but not yet humans. A true human must be formed within the humanoid, like the butterfly inside the chrysalis. In ancient times, this was understood, this was known. There is something beautiful within us. I refer to the consciousness, to the essence, what we call the soul. Originally, the essence or soul, or however you prefer to name it, came from the Milky Way, millions of years ago. The essence of each of us here came from the Milky Way and resonates there with the harmony of the universe. Later, it moved to the solar disk, traveled through the planets of the system, and eventually arrived in this world, developed in the mineral, continued in the plant, progressed in the animal, and finally incarnated in a human or humanoid body. Unfortunately, due to our own errors, the essence has become encased in a series of undesirable elements. The essence is consciousness, but it is bottled up within a mass of undesirable elements. It is necessary to break these elements, so that the essence can awaken. An awakened essence, an awakened consciousness, has access to the higher worlds of eternity. An awakened consciousness can see, touch, and feel the great realities of the world of pure spirit. An awakened consciousness can manage all adverse circumstances in life. An awakened consciousness is never a victim of circumstances. It can control them at will, can create new circumstances. But for consciousness to awaken, the undesirable elements we carry within must be destroyed. These elements include anger, greed, lust, envy, pride, laziness, gluttony, etc. These undesirable elements must be eliminated to create something different within ourselves. These undesirable elements within us are a false creation, a mistaken creation that must be destroyed. Each of us carries a false creation within. We need to make a new creation within ourselves, and this is only possible by destroying our psychological defects, eliminating all the errors we carry deep within ourselves, eliminating those errors, those defects, creating something new within us. It is possible to create something new. It is possible to create the higher existential bodies of the being. If each humanoid could use the creative energy that brought them into existence, the energy that allowed them to have a physical body, if they reached the age of 21 and, instead of wasting this energy, used it to create their higher existential bodies of the being, the essence would be clothed in these bodies, marking a new creation. It is better to create anew than to continue with the old creation we currently have. The old creation we carry within, I repeat, is made up of psychic aggregates, and these aggregates are our defects. We have countless defects. Indeed, even if we had 1,000 tongues to speak in a pallet of steel, we would never be able to fully enumerate them all. Eliminating such defects, such aggregates, is what is necessary. And instead of these aggregates, which seem like a true swarm of demons in our psyche, we must create, as I said, the higher existential bodies of the being. These are created with the same force that created our physical body, the same force that made it grow from a child to the age of 21. This force is called sexual. It is the energy of sex. Thus, in ancient times, people were wiser. In Lemuria, people lived from 12 to 15 centuries. There was enough time for the essence to be clothed in the higher existential bodies of the being. The Lemurians, after the age of 21, instead of wasting their creative energy, transmuted it. With that energy, they created the higher existential bodies of the being. And if they waited centuries to marry, it didn't matter because they lived from 12 to 15 centuries. Therefore, they could always afford to create, through sexual energy, the higher existential bodies of the being. Today, life is quite brief. At 21, youth truly begins. Before 21 is adolescence and childhood. Unfortunately, adolescents are already expending energy before even finishing their development as humanoids. If adolescents, instead of wasting this energy, saved it and, upon reaching 21, used it intelligently to create the higher existential bodies of the being, we would have a harvest of masters. Unfortunately, when adolescence and youth arrive, there is a waste of creative energy, sexual abuses, etc. Today we are in a rush, no longer living 12 to 15 centuries. Nowadays, we must create the superior existential bodies of the being before reaching old age, because if we grow old without creating these bodies, we will pass away having wasted our time. We will find ourselves in the astral world, then, as something with no value. What is death, after all? Death is a subtraction of fractions. When the hour of death arrives, what continues beyond the values? You know that if we do a fraction subtraction, that is what remains, the values. Death is a subtraction of fractions, and what persists are the values. But what values are those? Positive and negative values. The eyes of good and the eyes of evil, the eyes of our defects. All of those are eyes. So, what is the ego? It's an accumulation of eyes. And these eyes, what are they? Undesirable, subjective elements. Not all the eyes are bad. There are good ones, but they don't know how to do good. They do good when it shouldn't be done. The eyes of good don't know how to do good. You know, for example, that water in the sink is useful. You know very well that fire in the kitchen is good. But if water, for example, spills out of the sink and floods the house, it will be harmful. If fire escapes the kitchen and burns the living room curtains, it will be bad. Thus, good is what is in its place. Bad is what is out of place. The good eyes within us don't know how to do good. They do it when it shouldn't be done. They don't know how, and if they do it poorly. That's why it's necessary to get rid of the good eyes and the bad eyes, to wield the sword of cosmic justice, to move beyond good and evil. We must eliminate the mistaken creation within us and make a new creation. That is of utmost importance. How will we make this new creation? Simply, by transmuting the creative energy. Instead of indulging in lusts and fornications, we must utilize the energy that brought our body into existence, that wonderful energy that helped us grow, and use it wisely to create the superior existential bodies of the being. If we don't do the work, if we don't end the mistaken creation within us, that of the eyes, then that is the only thing that will continue on in eternity, a multitude of devils. But if we create the superior existential bodies of the being and eliminate our psychological defects, we will receive the soul and spiritual principles, transforming ourselves into true men, real men. With sexual energy, wonders can be made. If we transmute sexual energy, we can create the astral body with it. One knows they have an astral body when they can use it, when they can travel with it. One knows they have an astral body when they can use it like hands or feet. That astral body is subject to 24 laws, and it is a marvelous organism. Rare are those born with an astral body. It's not essential for life, but one can create it. Those who grant themselves that luxury, after death, will find they have a true astral personality, discovering that they continue to live in the realm of the dead. One can also afford the luxury of creating the mental body. Ordinary people don't have a mental body. Since each psychological defect is personified by an I, we have many eyes within, not just one, and each of these eyes has its own mind to think with. Therefore, we have many minds. Those who say we have a single mind are mistaken. We need to create an individual mind, which is possible by transmuting sexual energy and removing the multitude of eyes from our understanding. One knows they possess the body of objective reason or the individual mind when they truly learn to think according to the data of consciousness. The mental body is the body of objective reason. There are two types of reason, my dear brothers. The first is subjective reason. It is based on external sensory perceptions, with the data of the senses. It forms its concepts of content and functions in that way. It cannot know anything of the real, the truth, the being, God, because its reasoning processes are based on the data of the five senses and nothing more. That's why Immanuel Kant, the great philosopher of Königsberg, in his Critique of Pure Reason, demonstrated that subjective reason, the common reason that we all possess, can never know anything of the truth, of the real. But there is another reason worth developing within ourselves. I refer, clearly, to objective reason. Objective reason exists when one possesses an individual mental body, and that mental body must be created, and it is created with sexual energy through the transmutation of creative energy. Those who possess this mental body have objective reason. Objective reason is based on the data of consciousness, functioning with the insights that consciousness provides. Men of objective reason are the true sages, the enlightened ones. One knows they possess an individual mental body when they are able to receive divine wisdom directly, when they are able to think without needing the reports of the five senses. And as for will, what can we say? Ordinary people don't have a defined will. Since we have a mistaken creation within, defects personified by various eyes, each of these eyes, each of these thinking demons within us, has its own will. So, we have many wills, not a single will. We need to create the body of conscious will to be able to direct our actions. Those who grant themselves the luxury of creating the body of conscious will can originate new circumstances, not fall victim to circumstances. We need to create that body, also called the causal body. Those who grant themselves the luxury of creating it will obviously become masters. A man with physical, astral, mental, and causal bodies is already a developed man. Animals are born complete, but the humanoid is born incomplete. They need to develop and complete themselves through conscious work and voluntary suffering. They need to transmute the creative energy to create the astral, mental, and causal bodies, and to receive the soul and spiritual principles, thus becoming man. They need to eliminate the mistaken creation within, constituted by the pluralized I, a multitude of demons personifying errors that every human being carries within. Thus, we must develop the man within ourselves. We must create man. We need the willingness for man. Creating him is essential. The astral body has its laws. It is governed by 24 laws. The mental body is also a marvelous organism, directed by 12 laws. And the causal body is governed by 6 laws. The astral body has its own anatomy, physiology, and biology. There is a secret procedure that allows the adept who disincarnates to continue living here, in the physical world, with the astral body. This body can be materialized and live physically. It can live physically with people for a year after death. It is a complete organism, and it must also be nourished. It is nourished when we learn to transform the various impressions of life through a simple key, learning to accept the unpleasant manifestations of others with pleasure. Whoever does this with such transformed impressions can feed the astral body so that it fully develops. I want you to have an astral body and be able to function in all realms of the universe. To be able, with this body, to travel anywhere on earth. To attend, with this body, the Great White Lodge. I want you to have a mental body, so you can receive knowledge of your own being directly, so that you no longer depend on the five senses and can experience the truth. I want you to have a body of conscious will, so you are not a victim of circumstances, but can create new circumstances. There is a need to create something new within ourselves. It is essential to create the man within oneself, but it is also necessary to eliminate the mistaken creation we carry inside: anger, greed, lust, envy, pride, laziness, gluttony. All these defects are personified by living demons. In ancient Egypt, these demons were called the red demons of Seth. So, we must eliminate these red demons to free the soul, to liberate the consciousness, and instead of this mistaken creation, build the higher existential bodies of the being. The great work must be done, but it must be done with love. After receiving this knowledge, we must share it with others, bringing the teaching to every corner of the world, establishing groups of people everywhere who are genuinely willing to study the entire body of doctrine. It's important for you to understand that the sun is conducting a great experiment. The sun wants to create men. During the time of Abraham, there were significant creations of men. In the first 8 centuries of Christianity, many men were also created. In the Middle Ages, a few were created, but in this era, creations have been very scarce. The sun is conducting an experiment, but since there have been so few creations, it will soon destroy this race with a great cataclysm. You should know that a race lasts no longer than a sidereal year. Just as the Earth has its year, which consists of the Earth's orbit around the Sun in 365 days, and some fractions, including minutes and seconds, so there is also a sidereal year. Our solar system, along with our Earth, travels around the zodiacal belt. This journey takes about 25,968 years. This is the time a race lasts. Our race began after the Great Flood, at the start of a journey that began in the sign of the water-bearer, but the journey is now concluding because the solar system has returned to the sign of the water-bearer. During this journey, Earth's poles gradually shift, and we now know that, at this moment, the geographical pole does not align with the magnetic pole. At this point, if a plane travels towards the pole guided by the magnetic needle, upon descending on what is considered exactly the pole, it will find that the pole is no longer there, because the magnetic pole no longer aligns with the geographic pole. The poles are drifting toward the equator. This accounts for changes in climates, alterations in spring, variations in summer, and so on, and soon the Earth's axes will have completely shifted. Add to this the imminent arrival of Her Solibus, a massive celestial body on course to devour the Earth. It is already visible through all the telescopes of the world, and it is part of a distant solar system called the System of Tylo. Her Solibus is 6 times larger than Jupiter, and it will pass through an angle of the solar system. When this happens, it will accelerate the shift of Earth's axis, and the fire of the volcanoes, drawn by Her Solibus's gravitational pull, will ignite the world. Water will complete the tragedy, as seas change beds, and these lands on which we live will sink beneath the seas. The journey is nearly over. Only a few degrees remain until the journey ends. And it's essential for you to understand that this journey is ending, and that a race lasts only as long as a sidereal year. Now, just as the Earth has its 4 seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter. So too the sidereal year has 4 seasons: spring, the golden age; summer, the silver age; fall, the copper age; winter, the iron age. Right now, we are in the Iron Age. In winter, humanity has reached the height of corruption, and human creations are few. Nature's test tube has yielded few successes. People have lost all interest in solar intelligence, and when people lose interest in solar intelligence, the sun also loses interest in them and creates a new race to continue its experiment in nature's laboratory. The sun wants to create men, but this creation is impossible if we do not cooperate with the sun. Within us lie the seeds of the astral, mental, and causal bodies, and if they develop, we become men. But they cannot develop if we do not cooperate with the sun. We need to cooperate with the sun, my dear brothers, if we want the development of the higher existential bodies of the being. It is essential to understand this need for cooperation, and I will make clear what I mean in practical terms. What are the egos? They are psychological entities living deep within us. Some are good, some are bad, some are useful, some are useless, but all are subjective and inhuman. Our consciousness is trapped among these egos. We need to pulverize them, to reduce them to ashes, and this is possible if we are always in a state of alert awareness, alert novelty. It is in the terrain of practical life that we must discover ourselves because, in relation to those around us, our hidden defects surface, and if we are alert, we see them. A discovered defect is a discovered ego, an ego with a mind to think, with will, with desires. It is a living entity within us, demonic. If we set out to destroy it, we destroy it. The first step is discovery, then disintegration. Observation is essential. We must observe our own psychological defects, judge them, and finally disintegrate them. In war, spies are first observed, then judged, and finally executed. This is what we must do with our inner egos. If a thought of anger assails us, it is an ego that we must first observe, then judge, and finally disintegrate. It is not possible to disintegrate any psychological defect with the mind alone. The mind can label any defect with any name it wishes, shift it from one level to another, hide it from itself and others, but it cannot end it, cannot annihilate it. A power beyond the mind is required. Fortunately, this power exists. I emphatically refer to the power of Kundalini. Through the Divine Mother Kundalini, we can pulverize any defect. Kundalini is Tonantzin, Kundalini is Isis, Kundalini is Ram-Eo, Kundalini is also Diana the Huntress, and also Adonia, Insaberta, Re, Cybele, and Mary, a part of our own being, but derived. If we call upon her, this part of our own being, and earnestly ask her to disintegrate the ego we have understood and comprehended, she will do so. She will pulverize it, disintegrate it. And finally, with this method, we can disintegrate, end all the egos within us, and one day, the essence will be free. Thus, eliminating this misguided creation within us is necessary to create a new one, to build the golden bodies for the inner Christ, to raise the temple of the Lord within ourselves, a temple of pure gold. This temple will be made of the higher existential bodies of the being, and these bodies will form through the transmutation of creative energy. We will teach all this in our works, all of Tantrism. We will teach how to transmute this powerful energy to create the higher existential bodies of the being. In my books, I have written about this science. There is the perfect matrimony, there is the mystery of the golden blossom, there is the secret doctrine of Anahuac. These books contain the key to transmute creative energy and create, through it, the higher existential bodies of the being and to become true men. Therefore, eliminating the inhuman is necessary, and creating the human within ourselves is inescapable, unavoidable. Sacrifice for humanity is the third factor. Clearly, if we truly love humanity, we will raise the torch high to show the way for others. Today, as we are simply humanoids, unfortunately. The time has come to create man, for man to emerge, for man to appear. People continue to think of themselves as men, but man is the king of creation. Who can govern themselves? And if we cannot govern ourselves, how could we govern the universe? If man is the king of the universe, would it not be contradictory to say that all who inhabit the earth are men? If that were true, we would all be kings of creation, masters of the universe. Yet we are not even masters of ourselves, we are victims of circumstances, victims of our own mistakes. There is a need to destroy that misguided creation within us and to make a new creation. It is beautiful to possess an astral body, to explore every corner of the universe. It is beautiful to possess a mind that can function with the exclusive data of consciousness. It is beautiful to possess a body of will, an individual will that allows one to govern all circumstances, to truly become a master of the universe. This concludes my talk for tonight. But, of course, I am prepared to answer questions. Everyone, feel free to ask questions related to the topic, as you wish. Student, I would like to ask you, Master, the following. Can a man of 70 or 80 years create his solar bodies? Master, well, at that stage of life, it is serious, but he can still afford to fight hard for the disintegration of the ego, the I, the myself. If he begins to work on himself, disintegrating all the mistakes he carries within, he will continue his work in a new existence. He may indeed be able to create the higher existential bodies of the being. But, above all, he must tread this path. It is not enough to study Gnosis. Gnosis must reach consciousness, the being, because if Gnosis remains in the personality, only, if it remains solely on the exterior, in the intellect and does not pass into consciousness, then, in a new existence, no agreement will be reached regarding his yearnings and desires for self-realization. But if one loves Gnosis, that Gnosis enters the consciousness, and in a new existence, he will truly work toward his self-realization. Does any other brother want to ask a question? Student, in this path of Gnosis, is it necessary to shed even one's own blood? Master, of course. We must not hesitate to shed our blood in the name of our Lord the Christ, for it is necessary to destroy the egos. This refers to killing the egos, breaking them, reducing them to ashes. Do not forget that within each person are many persons, that each ego is a person, that each ego has a mind to think, a will to act. There are many persons that enter and leave our body, who simply handle us like puppets. We are robots, controlled by these many persons who live within us. We must destroy them. Does anyone else have a question? Let's hear, sister. Student, there is a brother who joined Gnosis and already wants to leave. Why does this brother, who has been here so briefly, already want to abandon the teachings? Master, because he is degenerated. To begin with, he no longer even uses his whole brain to think. Observe that if we were to play a Beethoven symphony in the middle of a wild party, none of the guests would remain, right? No one appreciates the music of the great masters anymore. For humanity to come to appreciate that music, we would have to start by regenerating the brain. The race is degenerate. In the times of Lemuria, people could live from 12 to 15 centuries, as humanity was governed by a different law, a different principle, which was the principle that governs the lives of men, the Phula Snytanian principle. But when humanity degenerated, when the ego developed, when passions and vices developed, the intellectual animal came to be governed by the law governing animals, the Itak Lanos principle. Today, we are no longer governed by the Philossnytanian principle, which belongs to men. We are governed by the same principle that governs horses and donkeys, the Itoklanos principle. People die very quickly. Life hardly lasts. In Atlantis, for example, one could live not as much as 12 or 15 centuries, but at least half. In Egypt, humanity had already degenerated so much that people lived only about 140 years. In the Middle Ages, one could live over 100 years, 110, 120. Now, people are dying between the ages of 50 and 65. Thus, people hardly live. There is hardly any time left to fabricate the higher existential bodies of the being. They die without having created these bodies and continue in the astral world as a multitude of devils, lacking individuality, lacking any real essence. We lack true reality. We need to create these bodies and eliminate our defects to become true men, but true men. And what I am saying can be proven. If you learn to leave the physical body at will, you will be able to see the disincarnated in the astral. It is very easy to leave the physical body. You just need to lie down with your head facing north, relax your body well, pronounce the mantra Pharaon like this, Faarrra many times, but with your mind, and let yourself fall asleep, and when you are already between asleep and awake, gently rise from your bed, while always feeling identified with the being. And if you do it this way, the body will remain in bed. Outside the body, if you feel like calling a loved one, one of the deceased, a loved one who died some time ago, you can do so, and you will see that this being comes in different figures, in different forms. Why? Because within that person there were many people, and those many people are the ones who continue in the beyond. Thus, it is very easy to verify this for yourself if you learn to leave the physical body at will. Student, Master, is it possible for someone to live more than 100 years today? Master, nowadays it is surprising that someone reaches 100 years, but really, it is almost nothing compared to what they have lived. Let us think of Lemuria, where people lived 12 to 15 centuries. Therefore, the human race is degenerated because the essence became trapped within the ego. The ego developed, and the ego ends up destroying the vital force, thus aging the organism quickly and causing death. Our diseases are produced by the ego. Student, how can brain regeneration be achieved? Master, well, regeneration is achieved by transmuting the creative energy. Married couples will transmute it in the ninth sphere, following the path of perfect marriage. Singles can transmute it through pranayama or through Vajroli mudra. There are different forms of transmutation for singles. But in any case, creative energy must be transmuted, not wasted, not squandered. Now, the creation of bodies is only possible, exclusively through Sahaja Maithuna, that is, following the path of perfect marriage. Because man represents the positive force, woman the negative force, and the Holy Spirit is the neutral force that reconciles both. Through these three forces, it is possible to create not only a new human being but also a new body. This is obvious. The three forces create. The positive force, the negative force, and the neutral force can create. But if they are directed towards different places, no creation would take place. For a creation to arise, it is necessary for the three forces to converge at a single point, and then there is a creation. One, alone, can transmute all his creative energy, but in that way, he cannot create a new body. However, he can use that energy to completely regenerate his brain. If you follow the path of perfect marriage, not only will your brain be regenerated, but you will also create the superior existential bodies of the being, because you will work with the three forces. Is there any other question? Student, what can you tell us about modern music? Master, well, current music is rather infrahuman. This music is related to lower emotions and animal passions. But the sublime music of the masters can also help us subliminate creative energy. Thus, this current music harms us severely. The musicians of this time know nothing about the sacred law of the eternal Heptaparaparshanok, the law of seven. In ancient times, an apparatus was built called Iatapan, which produced the 49 notes of the universe, 7 multiplied by itself, and as a result, the nirioonosian sound of the universe arose, the synthesis note of the earth. 2 ancient wise men, twin brothers, would go to the Gobi Desert to always listen to the key note of the universe. Whoever learns to handle that key note can leave the physical body at will. Whoever learns to handle that key note can perform wonders and miracles. Current music has nothing to do with the key note or the sacred law of the eternal Heptaparaparshanok. It is music that only serves to unleash animal passions. That music belongs to a race that is degenerated. Any other questions? Student, can't life expectancy be extended by improving food, for example? Master, well, many tests have been done, and yet, look, Eisenhower died surrounded by doctors with wonderful diets. Stalin died surrounded by teams of scientists, and what? I have known extraordinary vegetarians who have slowly died from weakness. The best way to extend one's life is to awaken consciousness. If one awakens his consciousness, he can negotiate with the lords of karma and live many years, enough to afford the luxury of creating the superior existential bodies of the being. Now, whoever truly reaches self-realization can obviously, for that reason, receive the elixir of long life, which allows him to live on the face of the earth for millions of years. Count Cagliostro acted during the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries in Europe, and still in 1939, he returned to Europe and will return in 1999. He is alive. Cagliostro, whom some believe died in a prison, and others that he died somewhere else, dueling with another swordsman, are mistaken. He is alive. Anyone who truly reaches self-realization can live for millions of years. Only through self-realization can life be extended. Is there any other question? Speak, brother. Student. When you say, to leave in the astral body, should it be understood that one possesses a lunar astral body and that with that vehicle one can travel through the supra-sensible regions? Master. Only man has bodies. The intellectual animal does not have bodies. The idea that he has a lunar astral body is not correct. The intellectual animal only has demons inside. It is a bunch of devils but nothing more. When one says, to leave in the astral body, it is a conventional way of speaking. These are the egos, which penetrate and interpenetrate each other. The essence is bottled there and can escape, leave, travel, and know the astral world, to a certain extent. Not much, but to a certain extent. What I mentioned in some of my books about lunar bodies referred to the egos and the three main demons that everyone carries inside, which are the demon of desire, the demon of the mind, and the demon of bad will, which act as astral, mental, and causal, but are merely demons. Thus, practically speaking, the intellectual animal has no kind of bodies, neither solar, nor lunar, nor anything. It is a bunch of devils that must be turned to dust so that the consciousness can be free and able to see, hear, touch, or grasp the great realities of the universe. Is there any other question? Student. How long, exactly, does the soul remain in a person's body after they die? Master. Well, we have been told that fire sustains all creation, but when fire withdraws, creation ends. The fire in us is the essence, it is the soul, it is the consciousness, which is embedded within the ego. When that essence withdraws, the body dies, but when it withdraws definitively, because it can withdraw to travel, as it does during sleep. But when it withdraws definitively, the body dies, it does not die before. And for the body to die, the angels of death have to cut the silver cord. When they cut it with the sickle, the body dies. Thus, when the body dies, the soul is also not there within the body, it is outside. Precisely, the body dies because the soul leaves. The soul is the essence or the consciousness. Is there any other question? Student. Master, Mr. Lobsang Rampa speaks of the silver cord and the golden cord. What do you say about that? Master. It's a matter of terms because, really, to speak of a golden cord, that is only for the gods. Because the astral, mental, and causal bodies in the gods are bodies of gold, pure gold, of the best quality, gold that even the richest mines on earth cannot produce. Bodies of that kind have a golden cord, but to have a golden cord, that is for the gods. Ordinary people have a lunar cord, the silver cord, that is all. Is there another question? Everyone ask. I don't want anyone to be left with doubts. I want all doubts to be cleared up here once and for all. Let's see. Sister. Student. I worry about how to reach people when they do not want to listen. Master. Well, you cannot force anyone to go anywhere, not even to heaven. They say, not even shoes go in by force. The one who does not want to listen, well, does not want to listen. We cannot force them to listen. We can, at most, give them the teaching, but if they do not want to receive it, then not even shoes go in by force. One fulfills the duty of providing the teaching. If they did not accept it, oh well, see you later and we'll see each other then. Is there another question? Let's see. Sister, speak. Student, Master, could you tell us a little more about that instrument that produced the 49 notes of the universe? Master, the IATAPAN is an instrument invented by two initiate twin brothers in ancient China. They discovered that the universe had 49 notes and created a precious instrument. Many elements came into activity with it. Today, all musical instruments are nothing but degenerations or involutions of the IATAPAN. They conducted experiments like the following. By making this instrument that produced 49 notes vibrate, they acted upon many things. They started to act over an octave. For example, from Do to Si, they would pass, for instance, a colored ray from the solar prism through the musical notes, and it would change color. They learned to extract the positive slide from the solar prism. Current people only know the prism, but they know it in its negative aspect. Those sages knew how to extract the positive from the solar prism and used the 7 fundamental colors to conduct many experiments. Among these, for example, they passed a specific color from the prism, in its positive form, over a piece of bamboo, and the piece of bamboo immediately stained with a color. They passed, let's say, the blue color, in its positive form, over opium, and the opium immediately changed its chemical characteristics. The notes of the musical scale were combined with the colors of the prism, in their positive form, and those colors changed according to the musical scale. Thus, colors and also the sacred law of heptapariparshanok combine. Sounds and colors are combined. Current people do not know the prism in its positive aspect, they know it only in its negative aspect. If they knew the prism in its positive aspect, they would perform wonders with the 7 colors of the solar prism. And if they learned to handle the 49 notes, they would become masters of the universe. Those 49 notes were given by the IATAPAN, and those 49 notes and the synthesis of those 49 notes is the sound NIRIOONOSIANO. That sound NIRIOONOSIANO is the synthesis note of the earth, vibrating here in the cerebellum of each of you. If you lie down at night, silently, if you suspend your thoughts, if your mind remains still and silent, and you intend to listen to what occurs within your cerebellum, you will feel a very subtle sound, which is the sound of the grasshopper, of the cricket. That little sound is the sound NIRIOONOSIANO. If you learn to listen to it, you can also learn to raise the volume at will, and when you learn to raise the volume, then the doors of perception will be open. If you manage to raise the volume of that sound, and then, when it is resonating, you get up from your bed, you will be able to do so with extraordinary ease and can travel, thus, out of the body, to the most remote places on earth. Your essence can make the journey. Those who have an astral body will be able to travel with their astral body. Those who have not yet made it will travel with the essence. The essence will allow them to make contact with all corners of the universe. But you must handle that key note. There is only one instrument that gives those 49 notes. The piano, the violin, the harp, are merely degenerations of that great instrument that those two brothers, initiates of ancient China, managed to create. I knew those mysteries, my dear brothers, the mysteries of the Order of the Yellow Dragon. I had an existence in China, or several existences, but in one of those many, in which I called myself Chou Li and in which I belonged to the Chou dynasty, I knew the mysteries of music and color, and I knew the 7 gems of the Yellow Dragon. I have received orders from the Logos to teach, to those who arise, to the understanding ones, that ancient doctrine through which one could uncork the essence, at will, to experience the truth. Is there any other question? Student, Master, does the soul evolve the same with a male body as with a female body? Master, well, I'm going to tell you a great truth, that evolution is out of order. I will tell you why. Because in ancient times, people were not bottled up in the dogma of evolution. In ancient times, people knew that the law of the pendulum existed. They understood that one end of the pendulum lifted Egypt, while the other end lifted the Jews. When the pendulum swung back, Greek civilization arose. When it swung again to the other end, it raised Arab civilization. And when it swung back once more, Gothic civilization emerged, etc. Thus, life unfolds according to the law of the pendulum. Everything moves in accordance with this law, even our feelings, the heart. For example, people who are triumphant, victorious, who believe they will acquire a lot of money and progress quickly, suddenly find themselves in misery and ruin overnight. When the pendulum changes position, when it moves from one extreme to the other. The materialist skeptics, enemies of the eternal, who made such a commotion over there in Russia, are now changing because the pendulum is shifting its position, moving to the other extreme, and spirituality is beginning to emerge in Russia. The greatest production, currently, according to statistics, in the field of parapsychology is coming from the Soviet Union. Thus, it is entering the psyche. The Soviets have just discovered the vital body, using special lenses and electric devices, and are studying it. They have named it the bioplastic body. They refuse to call it linga sharira or vital body. They have given it the name bioplastic body. Therefore, tomorrow's Russia could be terribly fanatical and religious, and vice versa. Peoples that are overly spiritual today may become materialistic tomorrow. Everything is moving in accordance with the law of the pendulum. Thus, evolution has no reason to exist. However, we do not deny its existence. There is evolution in the germ that develops and grows, in the tree that ascends and ultimately bears branches and fruit. And there is involution in the tree whose leaves are falling and whose trunks are drying up, until, finally, it becomes a corpse. There is evolution in the creature that is gestating in the womb, in the young person who is developing, but there is involution in the decrepit old person who ultimately dies. These are two purely physical, mechanical laws. What is interesting for us is to transcend these two laws and embark on the path of the revolution of consciousness. In the Arcano 10, everything is written. On the right side of the wheel of Arcano 10 of the tarot, we see Anubis evolving, rising, attached to the wheel, and on the left side descends Typhon, involuting. But above the wheel appears the Sphinx, which represents the sacred mysteries. That is the path of the revolution of consciousness. The head of the Sphinx is crowned with a 9-pointed steel crown, representing the 9th sphere. This means that in the mysteries of sex lies the regeneration of humanity, its redemption, and its revolution. The path of the Sphinx has nothing to do with either the ascent or descent of the wheel. It diverges from the wheel, going far from it. It is the narrow, straight, and difficult path that Christ taught us. That is why the great master said, "Narrow is the gate and straight is the way that leads to light, and very few find it." Thus, we Gnostics do not walk the path of evolution, nor do we want anything to do with involution. We take the path of the revolution in motion, of psychological rebellion. We follow the path of the revolution of consciousness, the narrow, straight, and difficult path that was shown to us by the divine Rabbi of Galilee, our Lord, Christ. Therefore, it is not through evolution that the soul, that consciousness can achieve inner self-development. Does it need a body? Yes, it does, to be able to work, to be able to know itself. That is why we are here. Outside the body, the soul receives information, and this information is necessary to continue the path with full success. That is why learning to leave the physical body is essential. In my book titled The Secret Doctrine of Anunnaki, I have written a series of chapters at the end on the yoga of dreaming, with a detailed, meticulous didactic approach that will allow each of you to consciously function in the astral world. However, it seems that the little Gnostic brothers have not studied those final chapters of The Secret Doctrine of Anunnaki. There lies all the technique to follow. A new technique, one that you do not know and that will serve you even in the most difficult moments, as a system to achieve awakening. But you must follow that technique, which is found in the last 6 chapters of The Secret Doctrine of Anahuac. Outside the body, you can receive the information you need. But here, in flesh and bone, you have to work very hard to discover yourself. If any brothers wish to ask, they can do so freely. I do not want you to leave with doubts. It is better to speak up, hear about everything you have. Student. Master, in order to protect oneself. Master. Protect yourself from what? Student. From negative forces, from the egos of others, which disturb us. Master. I will tell you that each of us carries within us a true swarm of demons. Why worry so much about others when we have a whole den of demons inside? It's not worth it. The best thing is to work on ourselves. Student. Master, regarding nutrition, how should one eat? I understand that when food is ingested, it is processed with the 7 musical notes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. Master, I will tell you one thing. It is true that when one eats, the 7 musical notes resonate, but they resonate naturally, and they are resonating at all times, according to the law of the eternal Heptaparaparshanok. Of course, when one is chewing the food, the hardest part resonates the do, and it resonates because it has to resonate. While chewing, grinding the food, the do comes out. Passing through here, through all of this in the larynx and all that, the re resonates. As it descends, as it falls into the stomach region, the mi is given, but when it enters the process of the liver and all that, the fa of creation resonates. After the vital principles enter the bloodstream, the highest note is the musical si. When that marvelous life elixir, which is found in the sexual endocrine glands, is elaborated, the exiohehari, the sacred sperm, the raw azogue, as it is said in alchemy. So, do not worry about the 7 notes, do not think about that, they resonate there. Just eat calmly, and that's it. Let's see, does anyone else have a question? Student. Is there anything wrong with women beautifying themselves, making themselves beautiful, let's say? Master. Well, I will tell you a great truth. The good, the true, the beautiful must be related. Personal grooming in women is not wrong, absolutely nothing wrong with it. The whole matter lies in the attitude one assumes. If a woman, for example, while grooming herself, is internally conceited about her well-known beauty, she has naturally fallen into the sin of vanity. But if she only grooms herself for decorum, out of respect for others, to avoid walking down the street in a horrible state of disarray, then she is not doing anything wrong. Everything depends on psychological attitude. In any case, beauty, truth, and goodness must be related. Personal grooming should never be condemnable. One has the right to groom oneself and dress well. Because, what would we say about a man with dirty shoes, or a man with a torn, dirty suit? Well, being poor is not a crime, but being unkempt is very serious. One can be poor but not unkempt. The shirt must be clean, and one should wear socks that don't smell bad. Therefore, personal grooming does not harm anyone. Moreover, one should groom oneself, not so much for oneself, but out of respect for others. I could present myself here in a disheveled manner, in any way, but I come somewhat neat. Why? Out of respect for you. If I came here in short sleeves, all dirty, like a man who just got out of bed, what would we say about that? That I wouldn't be respecting you, I would be disrespecting you. So, we all must groom ourselves out of respect for our fellow beings. Is there another question? Student. Teacher, what does the 9th sphere represent? Teacher, the 9th sphere represents sex. We spend 9 months in the womb. Humanity acts for 9 ages within the bosom of Rhea, Cybele, nature. Thus, the 9th sphere is sex. Student, is working in the 9th sphere a ritual that we should practice? Teacher, the ritual of the 9th sphere is something we all experience, yes. That is where creatures are born. Man is born from the 9th sphere. The world is born, where does it come from? Isn't it from the 9th sphere? Now, the practical ritual, the work with creative energy, is in the 9th sphere. The earth has 9 strata. in the ninth stratum of the earth, there is the sign of infinity, which is an 8 placed horizontally: brain, heart, and sex. The struggle is terrible: brain against sex, sex against brain. But if sex triumphs over the brain, then the initiate falls like the 5-pointed star, with the upper angle downwards and the 2 lower rays upwards. This is arcane 16 of the Kabbalah, the failure. Thus, in the ninth sphere is where the forces of sex reside. The sign of 8, placed at the center of the earth, is also in our organism. We are all organized according to brain, heart, and sex. There is the 8, the symbol of infinity, the ninth sphere. The work in the ninth sphere is the work in the forge of the Cyclops. In the ninth sphere, you are transmuting your creative energy, and this energy must be transmuted to regenerate ourselves, to transform ourselves, to create the superior existential bodies of being. Student, are the laws governing the fourth coordinate the same as those of this third dimension? Teacher, the laws are different because in the fourth vertical one can float with a physical body and everything. In the fourth vertical, the laws are different. Student, teacher, I understand that here in Chapultepec there is a temple in a state of jhinas. Can you take anyone with a physical body to that temple? Teacher, yes, it is possible, but one cannot go to the temple of Chapultepec without proper authorization. To be authorized, one must deserve it. It is a temple of the fourth vertical. Now, entering the fourth vertical is not that difficult. With a little practice, it can be done. All one needs is a little faith. You lie down on your left side in bed, place your head on your left hand's palm, then invoke, for example, Harpocrates. You must invoke him with your mantra, Harpocrates, and then wait a bit. When lying sideways, you should lie down in the position a chick has inside a shell, inside an egg. On the nightstand next to the bed, you should place a chicken egg shell painted blue. Imagine that you are inside that egg. Invoke Harpocrates. When you start to feel a tingling in your body, do not move. There is a tendency to scratch, but you should not scratch. If you start to see your hands, legs, and body swelling, it's because you are already entering the fourth vertical. When you see yourself swelling like that, get up from bed. Really stand up to walk towards the door saying, Harpocrates, help me because I am going with my body. Before leaving the room, take a little jump with the intention of penetrating the fourth vertical. If you float, it means you are ready. You can leave the house and move with your physical body through the fourth vertical wherever you want to go. There is no problem. Nothing will happen to you. Student, and to return? Teacher, well, there is a law in the fourth vertical that says, everything returns to its original starting point. In the fourth vertical, this law is fully observed. You return to your original starting point. For example, I did many experiments in my present existence to learn how to travel with a physical body through the fourth vertical. I will tell you an anecdote. Do you know what it is to get out of my room after being snugly wrapped in blankets and step out into the yard, even if it's raining? Moreover, you can catch pneumonia and not achieve anything. But during one of those many exits, I jumped and found myself floating. In the fourth vertical, I saw myself floating, and I was able to go exactly where I wanted. Another time, I called some jhinas to come help me, all night long lying on my side, calling on those people from the states of jhinas to come. Finally, around 2 or 3 in the morning, I felt myself in a very special state. Someone touched my arm. I looked back. A lady was there and said to me, well, get up. As I am a man of faith, I got up from my bed, stood up. Then I saw in the shadow, near a little table in the corner, other ladies around the table. They had the tarot there, and through the tarot, they consulted who was going to take the responsibility of bringing me to Europe. Luck fell to the one who called me. That's why she called me. Then she said to me, well, it's my turn to take him. Then I was amazed to see that she took me to help support me. Then I walked, crossed a yard, took a long corridor, opened the door, and went out into the street. When I opened the door, it wasn't the door that opened, but the counterpart. I was greatly astonished when I went out and found that many other people, men and women, live in the fourth vertical with a physical body. Well, I started walking through those streets. It was a great joy for me. It was one of my first trips with a physical body in the fourth dimension. Such great joy it gave me that I resolved to lift myself up and then dive down like an airplane, right? I had to stop that nonsense when the lady called me to order. She said to me, "Sir, I have a great moral responsibility towards you. If you continue like this, you might get hurt, you could get killed. Remember that you are carrying a body. Even if you are here in the fourth dimension, you can hurt yourself if you keep going like you are. Therefore, please be so kind as to stay calm." Then I continued traveling with her. In an apartment in the astral world, another gentleman was waiting, who was also learning to travel in the fourth dimension. We arrived, greeted him, and the lady introduced me to him. After that, she took both of us and said, "Come on, let's cross the ocean." Crossing the ocean at this hour of the night, crossing the Atlantic Ocean. For a moment, I felt insecure. An idea came to me. What if we were to leave the fourth vertical right now and end up here in the middle of the ocean? If we were to lose that state of Jinas, how would we end up? No one would survive there. Well, we continued traveling until we reached a beach in Europe. At that time, World War II was ongoing. We passed through some lands in Europe where the Second World War was happening, and then that friend told me, "We have to pass here very carefully because we are caught in the fourth dimension. We don't have any documents of any kind. If we unfortunately lose our state of Jinas here, we will fall in these lands. And we are in the Second World War. Here we could lose our lives, we must be very careful." Indeed, we had to be very careful because there are steel spikes, metal objects, and it is very dangerous. So we continued until that lady entered another house in Europe where another person was waiting. Then we stayed there chatting a little, and he told me, "I don't know what I see inside you, but within you, there is a bit of science, a bit of philosophy, and a lot of magic. That's what you have inside." We were waiting for that lady who was looking for another person studying philosophy. We patiently waited for her to bring him out, then she came out too, and we continued the journey, going where we had to go in parts of old Europe. I arrived where I had to be. After being where I needed to be, I returned home, got into bed, and everything was perfect. The journey was wonderful. When it is difficult for one to enter the states of Jinas, one practices and doesn't succeed and wants to achieve it, I will tell you. One concentrates on the 7 powers. I'm not referring to the 7 zodiacal genies, no, but to a group of masters called the 7 powers, with the mantra, Muerasiranka, Muerasiranka, Muerasiranka. That's how it should be chanted. Let the 7 powers come, and one begs them with a serene heart and asks them to prepare the body. Then the 7 powers prepare it. This work must be done every night and continued for at least a year. After one considers that one's body is prepared, then one begins to work again towards the states of Jinas until one achieves it. The work with Harpocrates seems wonderful to me, because it turns out that Harpocrates manages a variant of the Christic forces and handles the states of Jinas. Wherever there is a temple of Jinas, there is the Harpocratian force. Wherever there is a person entering the states of Jinas, the Harpocratian force is present. But one must know how to pronounce the mantra. The name of Harpocrates is Harpocrates, but the mantra is Harpocrates, and then one concentrates. It is advisable to bathe with aromatic herbs when working with the 7 powers. This helps a lot. Among these are mint, orange, chamomile, etc. Aromatic plants. One chooses plants that have aroma and this helps prepare the body. Student, I read in a book that during World War II they conducted experiments with wave devices to try to create a kind of weapon that could disintegrate the physical matter of humans. Teacher, that nonsense is not possible. With any physical wave, no one can disintegrate physical matter. Each physical body has a double. I would qualify that double as antimatter, because just as matter exists, antimatter exists. Just as the atom exists, the anti-atom exists. Just as electrons exist, anti-electrons exist. One's double would be the antimatter with reversed electric charges. Antimatter has been proven to exist and has reversed electric charges. Student, teacher, what can you tell us about Lobsang Rampa? Teacher, Lobsang Rampa is an initiate, a master. His mission has specifically consisted of doing popular work, sounding the first clarion call. Encouraging people to come and seek their path has been the work of Master Lobsang Rampa, and many have come to Gnosis thanks to the efforts of that master. I long for the truth for each of you, the innocence. I would like to see the essence of each of you unbottled, free. I would like to see you in Eden. I would like to see you among the wonders of the cosmos. When the essence is unbottled, how happy we are. Let us observe the elementals of nature, how joyful they are. They live in paradisiacal realms. Let us observe the princes of fire, air, water, and earth. They open their marvelous doors before us when we reclaim innocence. It is necessary for the mind to be pure, for the heart to be simple, and for us to have a healthy body. It is imperative that the pure spirit truly shines within us. When we return to the paradisiacal state, we will hear all those miracles of fire, all those symphonies that always resonate with the rhythms of Mahavan and Chodavan that hold the universe firm in its march. When we return to the paradisiacal state for having reclaimed innocence, we will know what the unity of life free in its movement is and will truly feel in our hearts the pulsations of the farthest star and the humblest flower. When we have reclaimed innocence, the torrent that rushes through its rocky bed and the pale moon shining in the blue sky of the starry night will have miraculous words for us. When we have reclaimed innocence, we will be able to speak in the purest dawn of the divine language that flows like a river of gold beneath the thick jungle of the sun. When we have reclaimed innocence, we will return to play like children with the fairies of fire, air, water, and earth. Then, my dear brothers, we will be happy. Today we are in pain, we suffer the unspeakable because we have not yet reclaimed innocence. Our minds are laden with the dust of countless centuries, we are leprous. We need the redeeming Christ to cleanse us of that leprosy. Obviously, that leprosy is nothing but the I, the ego, the myself, the self. We need to be clean just as the patriarch Job was after suffering so much. When we reclaim innocence, my dear brothers, we will be in communion with the holy gods. Then we will know that they truly exist. When we reclaim innocence, we will be able to converse with Minerva, the goddess of wisdom. When we reclaim innocence, our father Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great god Ibis of Thoth, will come to instruct us. When we reclaim innocence, we will then be able to intimately dialogue with our divine cosmic mother, and she will lull us with her finest songs. She will, in her arms, caress us, rocking us again in the cradle of nature, with the lullaby a mother sings to the tender child she holds in her arms. When we have reclaimed innocence, my dear brothers, we will be able to see the lion of the law face to face, and then we will understand that fire can radically transform us. When we have reclaimed innocence, we will understand that those 24 elders of the Apocalypse of St. John are within us here and now. They are the 24 parts of our being. When we have reclaimed innocence, we will see that the 4 blessed ones, the 4 holy creatures who direct fire, who govern air, water, and earth, are also part of our own being. When we have reclaimed innocence, we will cast our crowns at the feet of the Lamb. Then we will know what the inner Christ truly is, what the immolated one, the Redeemer, truly is. The hour has come, my dear brothers, to dissolve all that disfigures us, to put an end to that dust of the ages that we carry within. The Lamb washes us with his redeeming blood, that blood is fire. Let us love the Lamb, let us worship him because he is certainly the Savior. Who could sacrifice themselves for us? Who better than the Lamb? He, within ourselves, taking charge of our mental, volitional, sentimental, emotional, and sexual processes. He, within ourselves, eliminating all that is horrific within us, ultimately saves us. That is why he is our Savior. Let us worship the Lamb and throw ourselves at his feet, for he is worthy of all honor, glory, and majesty. He will allow us to return to the pure innocence of ancient times. He will allow us to once again experience in our hearts the melodies that escape from the lyre of Orpheus. He will allow us to feel in our consciousness the sparkle of the planets of our Lord Christ. He will then allow us to return regenerated to the ancient Arcadia, where the rivers of pure living water flow with milk and honey. Up there in the starry skies, the sons of the spirit pulse. Down here by the singing rivers, the flowers of the soul shine. It is necessary that the spirit and the soul live together in perfect marriage for our well-being. It is necessary for the rough stone and the diamond to merge integrally to become spiritual sons. It is necessary to eat from the fruits of the tree of life. It is necessary to cast ourselves, my dear brothers, to throw ourselves at the feet of our Lord, the inner Christ, and worship Him eternally.